good about that show. The side characters are interesting. The villains are forgettable. The plot I can barely remember. It's one of the most forgettable MCU projects. Sure, it has a fun style, and the main character is good, but everything surrounding the main character and style are just forgettable. Now She-Hulk, this is the worst MCU project ever, and I don't need to explain why. Now Secret Invasion, I think, is overall just kind of okay. To me, it's more so like okay. It's an you know what? Overall, Secret Invasion to me is just kind of is just okay. It's cool to see Nick Fury being the main protagonist of his own show, and he's kind of like he's really serious on the show, which I like. However, overall, the plot drags out for way too long. And honestly, it just got pretty tiring. However, it did have, and Rhodey being a Skrull isn't a bad idea, but we don't know when he was taken control of by a Skrull. That's the main issue, honestly. And the fact there's no other Avengers this honestly should have been an Avengers movie for like Phase 4. Do you know how insane that would be? It'd be freaking awesome. But anyway, overall, Secret Invasion's just kind of okay. It has some missed potential, but there's definitely some. It's definitely not. It's definitely not. It's definitely not as bad as everyone says it is. Echo. This show is really freaking forgettable. It was cool seeing Kingpin again, but at the same time, he's just. He's the only thing really. There's fun. The action scenes are okay. Kingpin uh, is again once again really good. However, um, unfortunately, I however Echo is just not that interesting of a character, or really as a main character really. I don't find her backstory that interesting about her ancestors. They aren't that interesting. And really, this show feels like it was meant to set up like Daredevil Born Again. And this truly just feels like a project they just threw at the wall and hope it sticked. So what's going on in D tier? Agatha All Along is a fun show. There's a lot of very fun moments in said show. But unfortunately, Billy Maximoff was a cool character to introduce. It was interesting to see him, and the continuation of Agatha's character was also interesting. And the entire Witch's Road plot twist is actually pretty damn insane. It's cool to see Agatha's backstory too. So that's good. It's overall I enjoyed it, but it's not too spectacular. Now, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This got a lot of hate when the trailer dropped, and to be honest, it's pretty unjustified because this show was a banger. Honestly, it's behind Spectacular. It's a top 3 Spider-Man show behind Spectacular and the '90s animated series. Honestly, because man, this show proved people wrong, and I'm super excited for season 2 because like it was pretty interesting. No, Niku Monora wasn't that much of a that wasn't a very well known character, but this show actually made me care about Nico. Nico as a character, which honestly is good. Tombstone was freaking awesome. He feels like a secondary protagonist, to be honest. That's how important Tombstone feels. He feels like an entire second protagonist to the story besides Peter Parker. Also got a fantastic version of Norman Osborn. We got showed Otto Octavius. A lot of cool, a lot of cool, some cool twists. And while it does have some of its issues, I still consider this a really good show. I feel like the animation in the show is a bit overhated. I personally really enjoy it. But this show is honestly what is probably like what would have happened if Marvel didn't have didn't get limited by Sony. And you know it did pretty good. And I'm super excited for season 2, though. Do think Spider Gwen is being introduced a bit too early, and considering that Peter hasn't really fought most of his rogues, has barely fought any of his rogues, has barely considering that Peter that has barely fought any of his rogues gallery at the moment. It feels too soon to, or at least his most iconic rogues gallery. It feels kind of like along with the Venom storyline apparently being in season 2, it feels a little too soon to introduce her. But who knows? This show might prove me wrong. This show might prove me wrong in season 2, like a lot of people got proven wrong in season 1. Now to Daredevil Born Again. This show, honestly, was really good. Show was really good. I personally put it in S tier. This show got rewritten a little bit near the ending, and to be honest, the show definitely got this show definitely was really good. It's great to see Daredevil back again. And honestly, it was great to see the parallels between Kingpin and Daredevil, where they Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, where they fall back, both fall, where they both fall back into being Daredevil and Kingpin. It was a really interesting story to tell. This show definitely does have its issues. The absence of Kevin Feige are a little underwhelming. Underwhelming. The Muse was kind of wasting the show. And really, and those aren't really now, and the side heroes aren't necessarily the most interesting, but they are at least. However, those final 2 episodes are really good. Let's see, intense fight scenes, the most graphic scene in the MCU. It was honestly it was a very good show. Honestly, I think it's the reason why a lot of people think it's good. And I'm glad it's getting season 2 and 3. Same with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Ironheart is probably the second. Ironheart is probably the second worst MCU project. Riri Williams is basically just not likable at all. She doesn't grow throughout the entire show, and basically, I feel like and I know people are saying people are saying, oh, she's kind of meant to be like she's. It's a realization that she's kind of a villain also. Yeah, but unfortunately, yeah, but unfortunately, there's still some moments where, but yeah, but yeah, but the thing is, villain protagonist isn't something that this isn't the first time the MCU has done like a villain protagonist. Thanos was a villain protagonist in Infinity War, and thing is, compared to Riri, there's nothing. There's a lot of cool things about Thanos, but there's nothing really. But honestly, Riri's just really unlikable. There's a lot about Thanos that you consider. There's a lot of things you can still make a villain protagonist kind of like charming and somewhat likable. Give him interesting stuff like interesting motivations. But Riri doesn't really have that, and you can still. And at the same time, she is if she is a villain protagonist, she may but at the same time she is fighting villains in her show which are really well written which are decently written, but unfortunately unfortunately it does make her seem it does make the villain protagonist thing a lot less believable, and the dialogue just feels awkward. Honestly, there's just it's not it feels somewhat awkward, like, and the consequences get for Riri get kind of resolved easily. Like in the end of episode 4, like that. Hey, black people guy, like is mad at Riri, but without needing to do anything to change his mind, he just kind of forgives Riri in episode 5. So yeah, and after locking away Ezekiel, being the reason that Ezekiel was being put away in prison, and basically ruining his life. He doesn't. He he only really destroys her suit and doesn't really cause any harm to her. It's not a. It just feels weird, and she basically gets a new Optune suit anyway, where her mother just gets Riri like the old car that her dad used to work on, and she makes her suit that way. And then near the episode 5, Natalie basically dies, and she basically gets revived by episode 6 by Riri making a deal with the devil, which it's which I know it's in which I know people say that it's a tragedy story, yeah, but unfortunately yeah, but unfortunately that comes at this comes at the cost of good character development. So this show just honestly nothing about the show interests me too much. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of plot conveniences and just and and Riri just not really being likable enough that I can't really plan to rewatch the show. And the reviews online don't really are in the user reviews online are pretty telling of the show's quality. Not just that, on like IMDb, Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, everyone just does not seem to like the show. Now, Aizo Wakanda just really wasn't much of anything, honestly. It just felt kind of bland, and honestly, it felt like a missed opportunity. The music was great, however, most of the stories happen outside of Wakanda, which honestly isn't really isn't really good. I was hoping to see more like the different tribes in Wakanda, how Wakanda operates itself. but unfortunately, the show's premises are somewhat underdeveloped. The story of The first two episodes pretty good, honestly. I especially love episode 2. Unfortunately, episode 3 was kind of ruined by an annoying protagonist. And the Iron Fist character being someone underused. And this show really did not need to have a interconnected plot near episode 4, because honestly that really doesn't need to happen. Honestly, it's kind of a C tier. Now, Marvel Zombies, it was good. Honestly, I didn't it had some of the show's plot. There were some faces that looked like they were pushing it. however, overall the show was I did enjoy it. However, I do think that the underutilization of Scott Lang and Spider Man is pretty disappointing. there's definitely some there's definitely some fight scenes that I feel like could have been more properly thought out. Honestly, Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, great characters, a lot of good moments. The gore, it's it's pretty gory, like a show like this should be. And honestly, the hopelessness in the world is a nice touch for Marvel Zombies. Overall, it's okay. However, and I may rewatch from time to time, but overall, the show it's not it's okay. Thank you so much for watching. And subscribe, comment, like, and notification bells for my future videos. Without further ado, bye bye.